Well, good morning. Welcome back to Three's In. I'm coming out of the backside of a bout with the Chicom virus here, but it feels good to get up and talk to you again. This morning I'm going to tell you about Joe. Joey Roker, I think you pronounce his name. I never was sure, so I just never said it much. Anyway, Joe operated a feed store about 25 miles from where I live today. And a friend of mine, Lester, introduced me to Joe, 1993, 94, sometime around that period. And I used to enjoy driving out there because Joe's feed store was one of these old-time country feed and seed store, actually. And I enjoyed going in there because you never knew who you were going to run into. Most of the time, it was farmers from around the local area who would come in, sit around, and have a cup of coffee with Joe. And besides the great conversation, Joe had pretty good grass seed. At any rate, this one day I decided to go out to get a couple 50-pound bags, and it was, like I said, 25 miles away, but I enjoyed the drive, and I really enjoyed talking to Joe. At some point during our conversation, over the years, I dealt with him. Joe learned that I had been a pilot, or I was a pilot. I can't remember if I was still flying when this occurred or not. But at any rate, he proceeded to tell me about his dad, who was a private pilot and had enjoyed flying like a Piper Cub. Well, I get out there this one day, and Joe and the conversation steered around to his dad flying this Piper Cub. And one of the farmers brought up the story of his dad flying that Piper Cub under the bridge, the railroad bridge over at Grand Rapids, Ohio, one day. And this farmer went on to say, Joe, he says, I'll tell you something about that day. He says, I don't know if you know this or not. He says, but I was with your dad when we went under that bridge. He said, we had had a couple pops before we took off. And he says, so we were up there just having a ball. And we got over to Grand Rapids. Joe spotted that bridge and went for it. He said, scared the bejesus out of me. But he said, when we got back, what a load of fun that was. And he says, I'll never forget that the rest of my life. Well, Joe says, yeah, that'd be my dad, and kind of let it drop at that. Maybe a cup of coffee or two later, farmers had to get to work, so the herd began to thin out, and eventually it was just Joe and I left alone in that seed store. And he reached down to his desk and opened the second drawer, took out a steno pad. And when he took it out, he flipped through it and he wrote something down. I said, what are you doing, Joe? He says, well, he says, that guy that just told the story about flying under the bridge with my dad, he says, he's the 19th guy on that plane that went under that bridge that day with my dad. Well, the plane only carried two. But anyway, Joe, instead of arguing with these guys over the years, just began a manifest and just added him to the manifest. And apparently this guy was the 19th guy to go along. Yeah, I love stories like that. Take care.